Recently, I've been getting a ton of questions about the table that surrounds my job site table saw, so I figured I'd make a video describing how I built it. This is going to be a little bit different than my normal videos because it's not going to be a build video, just kind of a walk around and describe what I did. I built it way before I decided to start sharing my work, so there's not really a lot of progress shots on it. There are a few that I'll try to put in the video of what I did, so hopefully it will be helpful. I really hope this will help some people and answer some questions that you have. So let's go. Building the table started off with this top piece of MDF. I just had a piece of MDF on hand. I didn't pick this size for any reason, but let's see how big it is. It is 30 long by 48 wide. And what I did is I put that piece of MDF on the floor, and then I put the table saw on top of it in the corner, and I marked off a square of where to cut out this little stand for this table over here. And then I built this little table just to hold the table saw first. Figuring out the height was a little bit tricky because I had to make sure to account for the wheels. This ended up being, oh, and I had to account for the space over here. So I cut these 2x4s at around 15 inches, but I am only 5'3", 5'4", so I needed it. This seemed like a good height for me. If you're taller, then you can make it taller. Then I had to work on the outer table, the outfeed table and the extension wing over here. All I did was flip it upside down, put on the 2x4 legs. Let's see how long these are. These are 27 and 3/4 long, and that I had to figure out. The measurement is a little bit difficult because I had to make sure that the outfeed was going to be slightly lower than the table saw because you don't want it to get in the way of pushing your piece through. So that was just, I had to just figure out that measurement. Then, once I had this little table and the outside table, all I had to do was connect the two. So they're just screwed, the legs are just screwed on together. And then I took the whole thing and flipped it upside down and put on some 2x4 bottoms, a brace to hold it all together, and attached on the screws. It was a really fast, quick, easy build. It's not pretty at all. It's not nice to look at, but it works and it functions. So let me show you a little bit of what I had to do before I put the table in. So if you see here, the fence, it needs to go underneath the table here a little bit. So what I had to do was notch out the 2x4 that was there, and also I had to route out a groove on the underside of this MDF. Let me show you. All right, so we're under the table now. Ooh, I see some spider webs. So you see here, I just had to notch this out. I think I used a jigsaw and chisel. So the reason why I had to notch that is because you see the, not the fence, whatever this is called, it has to pass through that 2x4 that I had used as a support. And then I just took a router and made a groove underneath so the guide rails have room to go. Here you can just see like the little table that's just attached to the bigger table. Very exciting stuff, huh? So after it was built, I also just put in these plywood as a base to hold some of my jigs and push sticks and stuff like that. The only thing that I wish that I had done differently was that I would have filled in this gap. I still can, but sometimes sawdust just collects under there and it's a little bit annoying. So I could still fill that in, but all right, now let's move on to the miter slot extensions. All right, so in order to properly use the table in the miter slot or crosscut sleds or miter sleds or things like that, I needed to put some miter slot extensions in the plywood here. That was also just super easy. I just lined up, after I had the table saw screwed down onto the table, I just lined it up, made some lines, and took my router, set up a fence and took my router and routed out to the correct depth. And now I can push my miter gauge past the MDF there. And it's also really useful for my crosscut sled, for the bars that go under the crosscut sled. Moving on to the fold out extension table, a random scrap. I just used a piano hinge and some other hinges at the corner to reinforce it. And for the fold down legs, I just put another hinge on a 2x4, making sure that they wouldn't collide with each other. And it's not the fanciest of fold down tables, but it works. Now, if I had one complaint and something that I would do different, I need to show you guys this. I could still fix this. It's not really a huge issue, but let me show you. If I want to have my vac hooked up to the back when I'm doing regular cuts or low angles, it's totally fine. But let me show you what happens when I try to do a 45-degree miter. It will go all the way because it's blocked by that 2x4. So if the dust collection is in, it only goes to like 37 degrees. And every time it happens, I freak out and I say, what is wrong with my saw? What's going on? Why can't it go? And I'm like, all right, dust collection. So I'm sure I can figure something out and notch out that 2x4 in order to accommodate for the back hose. But not a huge deal. Just something to think about if you're going to make this kind of table. Something that I do really like about the dust collection is that the Outfeed Table is the perfect height to hold a vac, the shop vac, like right underneath. So that works out really well. I'm very happy with how that turned out. And also, just something to note, my floor here in the garage is crazy unlevel. And right where the saw is, there's a big dip because there's a drain right there that I covered with some plywood. So the way that the legs are, I can kind of like adjust them to flatten out if I'm on a level surface. I mean, I don't know if this is really so strong and sturdy. It's sturdy enough. So I'm happy with the legs being like that. I'm able to make slight adjustments based on the unevenness of my garage floor. And even though the Outfeed Table does fold down, I rarely ever fold it down because it's right next to my miter saw stand that's right over here. And I always use this as a landing zone and a drop zone for my miter saw. I like the way this is set up right here, like really like it. So that's just something to think about in shop setups. And that is basically it, my table saw table. So I hope that that was helpful, and please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm going to put the pictures that I have up on my website with some measurements, but just remember, I'm a little girl. So if you're a bigger guy, maybe you want to make it taller. I think right around hip height seemed okay to me. It seems comfortable for me around here. So thanks for watching, and see you on the next one. I just used hinge, so it's not the most advanced technology of fold down tables, but whoops, that's a pencil.